Ready?
Ready.
Okay, mics on, please.
Whoops, mic is not on.
Did we get the mics on?
Okay. Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for January 12, 2015. We'll begin with the special order calendar, decision items. Item number 1, 4208BZ, 182 Reade Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, we were asked to adjourn this for a submission date on February 10th and a hearing on February 17th. I think they're still waiting for DOB's response about whether the floodplain regs apply to the project.
New cases, item number 2, 71728BZ, 5258 East 87th Street, Manhattan.
Okay. This is a proposal to amend a variance granted in 1929, I believe. And so to reduce the number of parking spaces from 515 to 150 spaces. And to reduce the height of the garage from a 6-story building to 3 stories. Effectively, the proposal is reducing the degree of nonconformance in terms of parking and noncompliance in terms of rear yard regulations, so it's actually lowering the impact of the project. I just note one issue from my perspective, which is that there are inconsistent floor area figures for the garage in the statement of facts versus the plans that should be corrected. Other comments?
I just had a question concerning the rear, that 10-foot rear yard setback that they, I guess, should have as a pre-existing condition, but it wasn't clear to me from their original drawing and what their proposed drawing is, whether or not they're actually taking a portion of that garage off at the back, or whether or not they're keeping it sort of as is. That was not clear to me, because some of the drawings seem to show sort of the shaded area above the second floor, and I'm not sure what that represents. So if they could make that clear, and I guess they have a mezzanine, which is not necessarily a second floor. At least the original drawing show it's a mezzanine, but they say they have an entire second floor. So if they could make that clear.
Yeah, I think that the shading, which is supposed to indicate areas not subject to the request, kind of get confused because it looks like building area. So if you could maybe change the code so it's clear what's building and what's just not part of the application. Any other comments?
I had no issues with the case.
No? No. Okay.
Item number 3, 17279BZ, 16704 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, this is an application to amend a variance granted in 1979 to allow a use group 6B real estate office with accessory parking. The proposal is to also add one accessory parking space. One of the other requests is that the condition upon which the variance was granted and repeatedly renewed was that upon the change in ownership and operating control, the owner has to come back and request another review from the BSA, and it was asked to remove that requirement. I note that the community board and the elected officials object to the removal of that ownership condition, and I'm guessing because it's not clear from the 1979 approval what the reason for that was. But given that this is right in a residential district, I can understand why the restriction might have had to do with a family business operating in a residential district, and that people in the community know who the family business is, and they know it's not going to be kind of a noxious use. So my inclination is to hold on to that, because a use group 6 use, unless we say it's use group 6B, but a use group 6 use could be a McDonald's, for example, and that would not at all be consistent with what the neighbors expected this use to be. And it seems to me that if you wanted to change this application and make it be sort of more general, you'd have to actually make an application that shows that the extension that was built after 1961 cannot be used for any other use except for this non-conforming use. What I'm not really clear on is the history of what was constructed prior to 1961 and what was non-conforming, but that's another application that might be made instead of a variance. Instead of this modification of this variance, you might amend the variance and ask for something that has to do with the basically the unusable nature of the extension for any other use than this non-conforming use. With respect to the sign, there's an existing sign, and it's not clear whether it's still illuminated or not. It used to be illuminated in the 70s. And that sign continues to be a non-conforming sign, and the grant from the BSA was not a variance for a sign. In the 90 grant, the board actually said that the sign needs to comply with the C1 zoning, and in the 99 grant, it said, it didn't specifically say that, but made reference to earlier conditions. So the sign still continues to be exactly like it was in the 70s. It seems to me that the only reason the sign doesn't comply is because it's facing 167th Street, and if it were just turned on diagonal, then the Department of Buildings could count half to one block and half to the other block. So with respect to the sign, I'd suggest that the applicant go to the DOB and sort of negotiate how you could keep that sign with a slight modification in its orientation. Any other comments?
Well, I thought that the request to remove the approval if a new owner comes could be handled if it was limited to office use, perhaps, and limiting the hours of operation, because I had some sympathy regarding the difficulty in selling the property if you need a new approval from the BSA. And generally, office uses are not that noxious. I did have a problem with continuing this non-conforming signage. I didn't see a compelling reason why, except for the fact that they've had it there for many years, why they need that much signage.
Right, okay.
When they increased the number of parking spaces from 6 to 7, they seem to have done away with the ADA space. And so the question is there any way that they can kind of restore a little space around one of the end spaces so that it can accommodate population that may have disability?
Okay. And I just wanted to add also that there's a requirement that the parking garage be closed off at night, the parking lot be closed off at night with the chain and post. And I could see one post, but no sign that there was a chain there. So if you could submit photographs that show the chain in place on both sides at night, that would be helpful. And also, the photographs reveal that there's some planting on 167th Street that's actually missing. It's all raggedy and missing, so that needs to be replaced. Any other?
I would just add that there was a condition in the 79 grant concerning the time that the illuminated sign needs to be turned off, which is 10 p.m., and I would advocate that that continue.
Assuming it's still illuminated,
yeah, assuming the sign can continue as is, and it's illuminated.
Okay. Okay.
Appeals calendar, continued hearings. Item number 4, 245-12A, 515 East 5th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, I believe this is, okay, there was a request to adjourn this, but because we have not had any submissions, the last hearing was on November 25th, where the applicant was asked to submit materials to the Department of Buildings and submit to us in advance of that the materials they were going to submit, and we've gotten nothing, and I don't really understand why you need almost 2 months to prepare a ZRD1 for the Department of Buildings and drawings, and we haven't seen any even progress drawings. So the request to adjourn the hearing was denied, and I want to talk to the applicant about what's going on, and I would like to see progress prints of the ZRD1 and the drawings as they stand at the moment. And also, the applicant was supposed to be in touch with the Department of Buildings, and we asked them to give us sort of a schedule of communications, and they didn't give us that. We need that to know that there have been some work done, because so far, all we can tell is that nothing was done since the end of November. Any other comments?
Yes. Item number 5, 10914A, 44 Marjorie Street, Queens.
Okay. With this one, we got, in response to concern about the use of the site, we got letters from the owner and architect describing the use at the site as a central hub for receiving equipment, storing trucks and equipment, which are related to the plumbing establishment, and that there will be no retail sales, and that the offices are accessory to the use. All of that by way of establishing that it's a legitimate use group 16A use, so entitled to a parking waiver. I'm satisfied with that as long as the Department of Buildings is.
I had a question about where they're going to park the trucks.
Okay.
If they're going to park their trucks there, obviously they can't park them outside because that's against the fire department agreement. So I would assume they're going to be parking them in the warehouse, but that wasn't clear.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
Okay. I don't know. Propose to close and vote? or-
Yeah,
If I get an answer from the
if we can get an
applicants?
answer, yeah, I think, and we're satisfied with the answer, we can close and vote, yeah. And condition that DOB obviously agrees with this interpretation of the use.
New cases, item number 6, 11014A through 11214A, Roswell Avenue, Staten Island. I'm still waiting for FDNY.
Sorry, you're still waiting for fire department?
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry. But it
okay.
was-
Okay, I didn't have any comments on this, but,
I had the same question, whether FDNY had weighed in on this. Also, just the remaining lots on Roswell, they open onto the street, so is there a turnaround or something at the end of that?
It's a through street.
it's a through street.
Is it?
Yeah,
Because
it goes
it doesn't-
around and then turns
There's a
right.
Wild Street. You can,
And you can go all the way around? All right,
Yeah.
because it didn't
there
look
is a
like
dead
that
end
on
portion,
there.
but this is not on the dead
Right.
end portion. We previously approved
On the other
homes on
side,
the
yeah,
dead
the-
end
right,
portion.
on the other side. Okay, all right, then, yeah, just FDNY.
Okay.
Any other comments? No?
No? Zoning calendar, decision items, item number 7, 7811BZ and 33 through 3712A, 78 Winchester Boulevard.
We still need DEP and fire department sign off on this.
Item number 8, 26613BZ, 515 East 5th Street, Manhattan.
So this is the companion case to 245-12A, so we're waiting for those submissions.
Item number 9, 16814BZ, 419 Lafayette Street, Manhattan.
I had no issues with this.
Item number 10, 18414BZ, 1-3712 Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, I had no issues with this, but there's this city planning restrictive declaration from 1977 that restricts the use on the 3rd and 4th floors. So even if we were to grant this, they still need to have the city planning restrictive deck removed, so will be conditioned on that removal.
Item number 11, 18514BZ, 14 Wall Street, Manhattan.
No issues.
This is the same.
I'm sorry, what?
This is the LPC.
Oh, this is this LPC, right, how come we did, okay. So this one, we still need a CNA, I'm sorry, yeah.
May defer.
Yeah, so we have to defer.
Item number 12, 20114BZ, 3524 3rd Avenue, Bronx, sorry.
No issues with it.
No issues.
Okay. Continued hearing items, item number 13, 11714BZ, 101 West 91st Street, 121, 139 West 91st, and 114 to 124 West 92nd Street, Manhattan.
Okay, so we got a lot of submissions, thank you, which were very helpful. We got revised plans showing that the lowering of the mechanical shaft so as to create a 20-foot separation from the loggia at the height of the parapet wall. So we actually got some movement there, so that now, when you look over the parapet wall, you'll see all the way to the edge of the turf instead of having a step. They provided drawings to show that realigning the third floor with the hallway wing and moving the ramp into the new section would not function without great loss of program space. Just for my edification, I'd like the architect to explain that a little bit. I tried to follow along with the very well-written architect's report, but I got lost there, and a little explanation would be great, because if that were possible, then you could really lower that level, that roof level down to the level of the loggia, which would be more like the balconies. So it would be really great if that was doable. So I need to understand better what you give up if that happens. They also provided a plan of the parking showing the actual car layout with 108 spaces that's using actual car sizes as opposed to the basic 8 by 18 spaces. And it shows to me that there's maneuverability. They also showed a photo showing the treatment of the kitchen trash in front of the building at 92nd Street, which I'll get into in a little bit. And then I just note the neighbors' opposition submitted their letters, which indicate they're still not satisfied with any of the proposals. And want to insist also on having access to the roof of that setback roof there. But I understand that there are DOB issues, there are code issues, and you can't do something if it's contrary to code and dangerous. So, I just wanted to say that with respect to that planting area, that approval would be conditioned on the school maintaining the planting area and on seeking DOB approval to allow the tenants access to the area, at least attempting to, indicating in good faith that you've applied to the DOB. And I know that this isn't actually part of the application, but often when we have applications, it raises issues that are troublesome to community, and apparently it's the trash bins here. So there were a lot of photographs of the trash bins submitted by the neighbors that show that they're kind of nasty and unsightly and leak and so on, and I'm actually a little confused about why kitchen waste is being stored on the street. Isn't kitchen waste supposed to be stored in refrigerated trash containers inside of the building, and you store more like boxes and things like that out on the street? So it's not a very attractive facade in this residential neighborhood where you have a whole row of trash cans or trash, they're more like containers lined up there. That's not a kind of welcoming or positive appeal on the street. So I would ask that the applicant provide an alternative for that. Any other comments?
I think they already submitted an application, maybe a ZRD one to DOB regarding access. And I would like to know if they've had any feedback on that.
Yeah, I don't think that they got anything back yet.
Yeah. No.
Oh, okay. And then the Trinity House opposition seemed to have different ideas about I call it the terrace, what to do with the terrace, whether you should have seating or whether you should have planters. And I was thinking, would it be possible to do the plantings actually on the turf roof and have sort of like hanging plants? So you would have more space. Because if they put the planters in the terrace, there's not much room really for seating.
Well, seating only works if they're allowed to have access.
Yes, that's
Maybe
true,
that's
right.
why it was, if you don't have access,
Yes,
it's going to
then
be
it's-
planting. If you have access, it'll be, they said actually that they're going to relocate the planters, so there's more room for seating. The architects actually said that, so.
Maybe they could show us something.
Yeah, okay.
And then I just wanted to confirm, in terms of the gym classes, are they planning any equipment storage containers on the turf? And where would they be located?
What I'd suggest maybe with the issue of the turf, of the planting, is that because that may take a while, DOB may not get back to them for a while, that they just submit to us ultimately what the determination is with a plan of what it is they're going to do with the landscaping, but that'll happen whenever it happens, because we don't want to hold up the process. Okay. Okay. Any other comments?
Item number 14, 15513BZ, 1782 East 28th Street, Brooklyn.
Did we just get an adjournment on this?
Yes.
Yes. Where did I put it? Yes, we just got an adjournment request for this. Sorry.
Item number 15, 18613BZ, 117 Geltson Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. The applicant submitted revised zoning calculations to include the basement, which is really only like a foot below grade. But the drawings that were submitted that I got didn't include actually the basement plan.
Yes.
So, but I can tell from the zoning calcs that are on the first floor plan that they excluded some area for the parking. So they did what we asked, but we really need a basement plan, so please submit. They also provided a 1929 Belcher Hyde map without looking at it, it seems to me.
It didn't show anything.
The house is missing on 1929, which would make sense since the certificate of occupancy is from 1946. So, please get a later, whatever, Sanborn Belcher Hyde map that actually shows the house, so we can establish the house was there. The neighbor had a house, but this didn't have a house.
And even highlighted
Yeah,
vacant lot.
Right.
That's good.
So another cue to all applicants, please look at what you submit before you submit it. Okay, that's, any other comments?
Oh, that was pretty much my comment.
They made the corrections I asked to the balcony dimensions.
Oh, okay, that was something I didn't quite understand what they were doing. Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Item number 16, 26413BZ, 257 West 17th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, this one is the ongoing saga of Brick Fitness. So we received very recently 2 letters of complaints from neighbors that in December, on very specific dates at very specific times, there was weight dropping and other kinds of noise. So that surprised us a lot, since there's also an affidavit from the owner that there's no weight dropping going on in the building. And it also surprised us because some of those dates post-dated the installation of the hung ceiling, and it seems like at least the sound would be more muted, maybe no music, something like that. We also got a letter from the owner denying that it's the source of the noise and that there's a no weight dropping order in place, and that they've been conducting informal testing, and that the hung ceiling is completed. So it's quite a quandary about this, and we just have to continue and speak to the owner again to ensure that, to find out what a no weight dropping order means, because I noticed it said no intentional weight dropping. Having worked out in gyms where, I didn't mean it, happens a lot, that's not really enforcing a no weight dropping program. So we should hear more about what their program is. And also to learn about what kind, apparently they've been doing some other kind of testing, and I'd like to hear what that is in terms of the flooring. Anything else?
I just had a question. Are they in full operation? And if they are, maybe they could explain what they're doing, which might cause some of this, some of the vibrations that we're hearing, or that the tenants are hearing. And then, again, my question about whether the tenants had their consultant hear anything. I know we've gotten anecdotal evidence from the tenants themselves, but I know they had a consultant. So if maybe they took some readings on particular days, and we could hook that up with if they were doing, tests, or were they actually having classes.
Right. My thinking about it is that the ceiling isn't going to stop the sound transmission at all from the weight dropping. It's really about the music and other kinds of sort of more ambient noises, not vibration-related noise. Okay.
Item number 17, 8-14BZ, 1824 East 22nd Street, Brooklyn.
We were asked to adjourn this, submission date on February 2nd and a hearing on the 24th.
Item number 18, 2514BZ, 1601 Avenue J, Brooklyn.
Okay. This is the yeshiva where they did, where we asked them to take a look. Well, for one, there was testimony from an adjoining neighbor about the school being too close to their yard. So the architects went back and revised the plans and increased the side yard from 8 feet to 16 feet, which is significant. And they also changed the layout on the floor where there's access to that side roof, which shows that it won't be accessible to students. It doesn't open directly from a classroom. And then they also showed quite a lot of landscaping being used to buffer the neighbors, and indicated in a letter that they are in discussion with the neighbors about that. It'd be great if we could get more specifics on the landscaping, but that it will be landscaped and that there's conversation with the neighbors, I think is really great. And then there was a programmatic needs chart that was added to the submission from BrainSpace, which was a really great submission. And the programmatic needs chart just shows that the planning standard sizes for various rooms in a school fall within, that the building's rooms fall within those standards. They also provided transit maps showing the near Avenue J bus and subway stops, so we could understand better about how many people would actually be driving to the school. And then on Friday, we received a letter from mysterious opposition. We don't know who the opposition is, since they came, we thought that the neighbors who were interested in this project came to testify at the last hearing. We do need to know who they're representing, but I want to add that we've had 3 hearings on this matter, and the school has been extremely responsive to the concerns of the neighbors and to our concerns. So we're probably going to be closing this tomorrow. I note that in rapid response to the opposition's letter, the applicant submitted a very detailed response, and that to all of those comments, and that the architect will be responding tomorrow at the hearing, but we're likely to close. Any other comments?
On their section A204, they still show a terrace adjacent to that, instead of a roof.
A terrace?
So, a terrace.
Show it as a
But it's still
overlooking-
accessible,
Yes.
but not to the classroom.
Well,
When in the plan, you see the corridor goes to a door.
right. Well, they're calling it a terrace on their section, so I think they should
It shouldn't be a
modify
door,
that.
but they still need a, okay.
That's my thinking, that it's not going to be used by the school. They have the front part of the building, which can be used
Okay.
on the roof.
So in other words, have it treated as a
roof.
As a roof. Okay.
And I just had a quick cleanup question. I think it's on their drawing A102, where they're showing the expanded side yard from 8 to 16 feet. They dimension from the property line to the walkway as 8 feet, but they don't actually say 16 feet from the building to the property line. So if they could just add that, so it's clear that it's not just that 8 foot that we were looking at, that we're really looking at 16 feet from the building to the property line. But other than that, I was pleased with the submission.
Amelia?
No, I found it very responsive.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Item number 19, 6414BZ, 1320 East 23rd Street, Brooklyn.
We were asked to adjourn this to February 10th with a hearing on the 24th.
Item number 20, 9114BZ, 3420 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
And we were asked to adjourn this to February 3rd with a submission on January 27th.
Item number 21, 28514BZ, 28614BZ, and 28814BZ. These are Build It Back, 84 McLaughlin Street, 20 Orlando Street, and 131 Cedar Grove Avenue, Staten Island.
You want to do all 3 of those together, since we...
All call the other ones, too?
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 22, 29714BZ, 29814A, 29914BZ, and 30014A, 6 Topping Street, 28 Topping Street, Staten Island, 30714BZ, 540 Hunter Avenue, Staten Island, and number 24 is 308 14BZ, 310 14BZ, and 312 14BZ, 178 Kiswick, 55 Hempstead Avenue, 297 Colony Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay, we were asked to adjourn all of these to January 27th with a submission on the 20th, on January 20th.
New cases. Item number 1, 16914BZ, 325 Avenue Y, Brooklyn.
Okay, so I just have a general comment about this application that's directed actually at the representatives of the applicant. The purpose of the pre-hearing application review and the comments period is to get the application into good shape before the hearing so as to reduce the number of hearings to the minimum necessary. This applicant received many requests for information from BSA staff, but selected not to respond to most of them. This is confusing, as the intent is to make the hearing process run smoothly. The applicant's representative's decision not to cooperate with BSA staff is not serving the best interests of the application, the school, or the client. Similar lack of cooperation on the part of the applicant's representatives seems to have been at play at the community board, because it's difficult to understand why the community board would deny an application for a child care facility in what is described as a desperately underserved area. Fortunately, we were able to make contact directly with the school's administrator, and so could get some of the questions answered in that way, which included a visit to the administrator's other school, the Interforce Tots, and that was very helpful. So, because the applicant's representatives wouldn't respond to our questions, we still have questions, and there are a lot of them. And so this is something where I doubt you're going to be able to take notes, but the video will hopefully function. And anyway, so I'm just going to start, and I know others have a lot of questions too. So the drawings are confusing, as they show an existing exterior and a new exterior. Will the facade, which is an existing building, so will the facade be modified for this use? Will the fenestration and exterior materials be changed? That's what the drawings show. How will, there's a 45 dBA requirement to be achieved with inside of the building. Will the windows be changed to accomplish this? Or instead, are you waiting until the interior is completed, and then that would buffer the difference? Not at all clear about that. The statement of facts should incorporate the data that was established in the environmental assessment statement to support statements that the proposal is compatible with surrounding uses, including traffic, parking, pedestrian and surrounding uses info, the issue of children adjacent to automotive uses, traffic related to that use, air quality, noise, and et cetera. I note that in the statement of facts, there's no mention at all that this is an automotive street with lots of car repairs and things like that go on. There were a lot of questions that we posed to the administrator of the program, and I think many of those were answered, but that was actually the job of the applicant's representative to answer those questions, so I'm going to give them here. With respect to the permitting and funding, does the administrator have any forms of written commitment or interest for funding or other support from the Department of Education, City Administration for Children's Services? What permit will the school obtain pursuant to Section 4703 of the New York City Health Code from the Department of Health? Has the school received any commitment from the department that such permit will be issued? All of these questions go to whether the funding and granting agencies agree that there is a need for a facility of this size and this location, talking about 700 children. Will 700 children and 90 adults be occupying the building at the same time from opening to closing? How are the age groups being distributed in the classrooms? The drawings should show how many children in which age group and how many adults will be located in each room. What the drawings show instead is buildings department occupancy levels, which is not helping us understand the program at all. Basically, it's difficult for us to understand how this facility can handle so many very small children at once. So that's why we wanted to understand how the Interforce TOTS facility works with 1,000 kids. Are all 1,000 kids at the same facility? We found out on a site visit that the answer to that was no, but how could we find that out? Weren't we supposed to be told that by the applicant's representative? With respect to this facility, describe the actual operation of the facility with each age group from morning arrival to departure. How many arrive at a time? Where do they go? How long do they stay? What do they do? How many of which age group will be accommodated? How does pick, drop off, and pick up for 500 kids work? Does the operation of vans pulling up to a curb, detail the operation of vans pulling up to a curb, unloading with how many adults? How do you protect kids from running into the street or away from the caregivers? Is it true that 3-year-olds arrive by minibus with only 2 adults, or never mind 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, or 1-year-olds? This is 6 months and up. Who's arriving by minibus? Detail also, which was not discussed, the carriage conditions on sidewalks with what the EEAS describes as 140 parents wheeling 140 kids to the school. Yike. When you see that with 6 kids in front of daycare, it's often shocking. How is this managed and interfaced with kids arriving in buses? Will every room be occupied simultaneously? What are the rooms with capacities of more than 27 persons for if the maximum number of children per room is 25 for 5 to 6-year-olds with a minimum of 2 adults? There are a number of rooms that have much more room than that. How does the food service work? How do they feed them? Where does the food come in? Where is it stored? How is it delivered? How does distribution of the kids in the building work? How do the kids get to their rooms? Do they move out of their rooms during the day? Apparently the answer to that is yes. We'd like to know more. Is the only access to outside during the day to the roof, or do they walk to the park? Do they do field trips? Apparently they walk to the park. With respect to the rooftop play, don't you need the elevator to get there for disabled access? There's no elevator access to the roof. What are deliveries for food, supplies, et cetera, and how often? The EAS doesn't actually talk about deliveries. It only talks about pedestrians and the users. How is trash removed from the site? And with respect to the age range of kids, just trying to understand this program, this is effectively, if I understand it, daycare at the 0 to 3-year range, pre-K at the 3 to 5 or something like that range, and kindergarten at the 5 to 6 range. At the 5 to 6-year range, then, isn't this kindergarten? And then doesn't that necessarily have to have some Board of Ed approval to operate as a kindergarten? I'm not really understanding that. That seems to me that would be part of the public school system then, or other school. Or this is a private school, or I don't know. So, with respect to the parking, the drawings show 38 spaces in the adjoining lot for the PCE. The PCE application states that 40 spaces are required for that use. So, unless DOB approval was for 38 spaces, the site is non-complying with the BSA special permit. So that's something where the owner of the property needs to address. So far we have a non-compliance there with the BSA approval. The EAS at page 20 says there are 20 spaces for staff. The EAS was just, let's say there was a response to a DOT comment letter where apparently there are no spaces provided on that lot for staff, but the statement of facts says, and let's say the EAS said that there were spaces for staff. The statement of facts doesn't mention it, so we don't know what's going on with the parking for staff. I want to say about the EAS that unlike the rest of the submission, the EAS was extremely well done and informative. I relied on it almost entirely to understand what this application is about. On table 2.3-1, I asked, does it make sense that the daily parent trips are 2,800 for 700 kids? I noticed in an update for DOT that number was reduced to like 2,100, but I'd like the environmental consultant here to respond to questions in the EAS. On the project-generated traffic volumes for figure 2.3-7 and -8, what is the modal split of the trips added? How many cars, minibuses, et cetera? And what about delivery vehicles for meals? How many per day? Supplies, trash removal, et cetera? On pedestrian trips analysis, why don't the children offloading from the buses count towards some of the pedestrian trips? Because that clogs the sidewalk. What about impact on the sidewalk of loading and unloading of supplies, et cetera? With respect to the crash data, which I found very helpful, I haven't seen crash data that often. What sorts of measures, such as crossing guards, will be implemented to avoid conflict between pedestrians and motorists during school hours? Since the block has automotive repair and related shops on it, what is the impact of these uses on traffic flow, bus parking, pickup and delivery? What impact will school traffic patterns have on these uses? With respect to air quality, since this is a school and is a sensitive receptor with children playing on the roof areas, other than the paint booth data from permit sources, shouldn't an air quality test be done to determine potential for air quality impacts from surrounding manufacturing and transportation uses? Should provide a photo of the spray foam installation that has been applied to the building frame. That's a quote from both the EAS and the statement of fact. That's supposed to bring down interior noise levels. It's not at all clear how unfinished the spaces were when the interior noise testing was done. So not clear how you're going to be compensating for the noise levels. The EAS should also comment on exterior noise levels with respect to the rooftop play areas. For example, should these have sound attenuating enclosures for the students? There was a DEP letter of October 16th, 2014 that requested a health and safety plan be prepared and submitted to them. And I don't think that that was done. It also requests that once construction is completed, that an indoor air photoionization detection survey be conducted and submitted. That'll be part of the conditional approval. And then the DOT letter of October 1st, 2014 required changes to the traffic studies, which we just received from AECOM on the 9th and haven't had a chance to review. So, but anyway, DOT has to review that. And then there was a site visit done by a couple of the commissioners, so I'd like them to speak about that.
Well, you enumerated, I think, most of what my concerns were. I really needed to see more detailed operational plans and maybe couple that with drawings that are color-coded, which I have found in the past, at least for me, when I'm reading something and then can look at a plan and see exactly how the color perhaps lines up with a particular sort of group of kids, and how they move through a building and what their classrooms are, et cetera. That becomes immediately apparent to me how the operation, sort of inside the building is. So I think that operational plan has also got to include the issues that we talked about in terms of traffic and how kids actually arrive to the building, how they are separated, the different age groups are separated out, how they then get into the building safely, what their day is like, do they leave the building, and if they do, are there buses that need to come and pick them up to take them places? So that was not really clearly articulated in the applicant's submissions, and I really need to see more about that. Also, they're going to be sharing a building with Retro Fitness, and they don't really discuss how the interaction of the children with clientele from this other use is anticipated, or if they haven't thought about it, they need to think about that. How do you have sort of adults in the same area that you might not have control over with small children? What safeguards have they put in place? Also, if they can describe, they're talking about having attended parking, but they haven't really described how that works. You pull in, you say your intention is to go to the facility, how does that, operate? How do the cars go in and out? It wasn't really clear to me if there was any sort of wayfinding signage either. Are they planning on signage at the parking lot? Are they planning on signage, more extensive signage on the building that says, there are children, don't blow your horn, this is an area in which, there's a lot of traffic in terms of fixing cars and that sort of thing. I would worry that there may be tow trucks and there isn't enough awareness from the public that this facility would be there. So I think they need to talk about that as well. And talk a little bit more about what the exterior lighting is going to be like. How are they going to sort of maintain this presence in the darkness, especially in the wintertime, and you've got kids on the street? And have they thought about that? Have they thought about how this facility looks out on the sidewalk? And would people be aware that you've got little kids who, might be running around? But I was pleased to go on the site visit and pleased to see their current operation. I was impressed with it. I think that the applicant just needs to express that same good impression in writing for the new facility. I was impressed how it's operated. I was impressed how they're managing the children and their goals, but that does not come out in their written submissions. And I think that would be very important for the applicant to put forward.
I agree. I went to the site and I was, it seemed like a very well-run daycare slash educational facility for children. And I would like a few things. A lot seems to depend on the Department of Health Code, Section 4703, if they could give us the complete text for that, because that determines the occupancy of a certain classroom and the number of teachers. I had actually added up all the occupancies for all the classrooms they list, and I came up with a total of 660 children and teachers. So I didn't understand how they were going to fit 700. It didn't include the multipurpose rooms. So that I did not understand. And it still is not clear to me whether they're going to have after-school programs, whether all 700 students will be there at the same time. And again, I guess as you previously said, the color coding and what is planned for each room, how many attendees and how many children in each room, and what age group. I guess some of this can be flexible, but at least what they're preparing for when they open. And I would also like an area map with the details of all the non-residential uses within the 400 feet. I think a lot of it is described in the EAS, but if I could just look at a map and say, this is what we have across the street, this is what we're dealing with. Most of the other comparable facilities that they gave us a list of, I think it was 36, the occupancy of those facilities, the number of students handled are much, much less than this. So I think the largest in any of the other comparables they submitted were maybe 400 students. This seems to be significantly more. I think that's about it, in addition to all the other comments.
I just wanted to say that I did not have the benefit of going to the site visit and finding out this information. And given that the statement of facts and findings is really woefully inadequate, I find that hopefully I will be able to get the same amount of information that my colleagues already have. I think it's really important that the statement of facts and findings is a standalone document. I really don't think that one should be toggling back and forth between that and the EAS statement. It's just, it's not fair to us as commissioners to find information and to have to cull it from different spaces. And I think that, statement of facts and findings is that. The facts should give us information about the program. It should spell out what the program is, and the findings should address all of the questions that have been asked here at the table. I mean, we need to know, is there an adequate separation between noise and traffic? Are there noxious, effects in the area that are going to affect these children negatively? And all of that should be addressed in the facts and findings, not in the EAS. So I really am looking forward to the next submission from this applicant, and I'm hoping to see a comprehensive statement of facts and findings that will pull all of it together.
Thank you. And I just want to add, the EAS actually has a very particular purpose. It's to satisfy seeker requirements. It's reviewed in a different way. And so a lot of the information that's in the EAS is oriented towards seeker analysis, which is not the same analysis as the one that you do for the findings for the special permit. So though the EAS certainly provides information, its argument is not the same argument. And that's why it must be in the statement of facts, not just for the convenience of the commissioners, but because you're doing two separate things when you make an application. You're fulfilling city and environmental quality review requirements and making arguments pursuant to seeker regulations, and you are making findings pursuant to the requirements of the special permit.
Item number 2, 20314BZ, 18 West 8th Street, Manhattan. It's a PCE.
Okay, PCE. So this one is on 8th Street, and I note that when I went online, which is what we always do with these PCEs, I noticed that there are classes, a lot of them on Sunday. So it means it's been operating for a long time to have that many classes. So this is a legalization. I'd ask all the applicants to please find out on these PCEs before whether it's a legalization, because if I can find out by researching in 2 seconds, so can they. So I know, first of all, that there is an error in floor area on the statement of facts. On the drawings, the PCE is showing as 1,326 square feet on the first floor and 3,058 square feet in the cellar. So the statement of facts has to align with that. There's no signage shown at all on the front of this building, and that's very confusing, because how would anybody know this is there? There must be some kind of signage. I know this is in a historic district, and we received a certificate of no effect. Maybe the reason that there's no signage is they're still applying to LPC, I don't know, or they're going to be installing signage set back from the window so it's not regulated. We also received fire department sign off. So according to the 305 Fitness website, this is a cardio dance, dance cardio gym with live DJs. So that says to me, incredibly loud.
One big party.
Right. And in fact, it's described like that and on various reports that, exercising is made into a party, right? So, so therefore, even though this is just a one-story building with a cellar, there are residential properties right adjacent to it, rear yards right there, and I'm kind of assuming you can sort of hear the boom box. However, it does say in the application materials that the space will be a box within a box for the downstairs studio. I don't know what that means, if that could be described in more detail. And it also says that there are subwoofers for the sound system, which will have padding to protect from vibrations. If we could understand much more about the sound isolation, that would be great. And then the other question I just have is whether there was any outreach to immediate neighbors about that, because unless we hear from them that this is a nuisance and maybe they're not aware that it's at the BSA, so maybe some immediate neighbor outreach is in order here, unless they can do sound testing outside and tell us that you can't hear it from the outside. I don't know.
Any other comments? I know there was one about the zoning.
Right, if they could clarify where the location of, how deep the commercial zone is, because from the radius map, it looks like a portion of the PCE on the first floor will be in the R6 district. But it's less than 25 feet.
And I also had a question about the rear. Their CO says that there's an egress easement, and I'm wondering if the PCE space interacts in any way with that easement. It's not clear.
Interact with the. Okay.
I don't know if they took out an
Any other?
exit or something.
That's it.
Okay, thank
This
you.
concludes the public review session for January 12, 2015.